every now and then during a season, you have these moments where it sort of hits you about how far you are into the season or how little there is left in the season. I was like shocked. I don't know why this didn't occur to me before, but I was looking at something with Pitt and Clemson. I noticed Clemson is coming into this game 6-1, which means this game on Saturday is Clemson's final ACC game of the season. Like, this is it. This is where Clemson is done with ACC games. I mean, that's how far into the season we are right now, that one team is almost done with its conference play. Now, Clemson schedules like an SEC team. Maybe they were anticipating being in the SEC by 2024, but they played the Citadel next week before closing with the rivalry game against South Carolina. They're scheduling like an SEC team, even though they're still in the ACC. But this is the final game of the season, or the final game of the conference schedule for Clemson. That's how far into the season we are. Now, Pitt, of course, has 2 more games after this Saturday, both conference games at Louisville and against Boston College. Boston College got a little bit, or at Boston College as well. The Eagles got a little more interesting with Thomas Castellanos leaving the team, apparently, after losing his starting job. I actually didn't really pay too close attention this past weekend and realized that Castellanos had lost his starting job, but he noticed, and he's leaving the team. So, it hasn't been as good this year as maybe he was expected to be. I've always been really high on him as a player, but he, I think has had some struggles, and it hasn't gone great for him. And now he's, presumably, I guess, reportedly entering the transfer portal via Con Dios to Thomas Castellanos. But again, these are all sort of reminders that we're getting near the end of the regular season. And it sort of seems like it's gone fast. For whatever reason, this season feels like it's gone faster than most seasons. And seasons usually end up, you get to the second or third week in November, you're like, wow, we're already here. Well, it seems especially true this year, maybe even faster than you expected. And the fact that Pitt closes the season with 2 games on the road means that here we are, with the 10th game of the year, and it's the final home game of the regular season. Saturday is going to be the final time you go to Acrisure Stadium to watch Pitt play this season. It'll be the final home game of the year, and that means it's senior day or senior night, whatever we're calling it. It's a noon game. They're going to be introduced before 12 o'clock, so maybe you could call it senior morning. But it's senior day, and we're still efforting to get a list of who's going to be recognized and who's going to walk at senior day. But we know there are 17 seniors on this team: redshirt seniors, true seniors, and super seniors. Some of those guys who are wrapping up their 6th year of eligibility, which is a long time. And some of them even spent all 6 years at Pitt, which is pretty remarkable as well. A handful of guys from that 2019 recruiting class. But let's talk about the seniors today. Look, I mean, we could spend this whole episode of the Morning Pitt breaking down the matchup with Clemson, but here's what it comes down to. Clemson's lines, the offensive line and defensive line, are both really, really good. And that's really, really concerning because Pitt's lines, the offensive line and defensive line, have been really, really not good. And not something you're going to bet on against probably the best combination of offensive defensive lines in the conference. And so that's going to be a real challenge, and it's going to be a challenge for Pitt's offense, of course, as every game has been for the past 4 games. It's going to be a real challenge for Pitt's offense, but it's also, I think, going to be a challenge for Pitt's defense. It's probably an underrated challenge in this game is how good Clemson's offense is at certain things that they want to do. They have a very good running game. And I'm a little concerned for Pitt's run defense in this game. I mean, this is really starting to feel like the kind of game that is either going to be an amazing, inspirational upset or a complete blowout. And we'll see which one of those comes to pass. It could just be an average run-of-the-mill 24-19 type of game. My guess is that it'll be probably one or the other, either the amazing, inspirational upset or the blowout loss. So we could spend 20 minutes talking about that, but I'm not sure that I'm going to have much more insight and analysis than that. That this battle looks like it favors Clemson along both lines up front, and if Clemson can control the line of scrimmage, then as in most games, if you control the line of scrimmage, they're going to win. And it's going to be really tough for Pitt to move the ball or to stop Clemson if Clemson is able to exert its will along the line of scrimmage. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that Clemson will be. I can't rule out a heroic performance from Pitt's offensive line and defensive line, but I'm saying that it looks like it looks like Clemson should have the advantage up front, which will give them the advantage in this game. So rather than spending 20 minutes talking about that, let's talk about these seniors. All right, is their final game at Acrisure Stadium in a Pitt uniform. The last time you'll see these guys suit up for the Panthers in person, unless you're going on the road to Louisville or Boston College or a bowl game, assuming some or any of them play in the bowl game. And so I thought we could reflect a little bit because it's an interesting group, a mixed group, transfers, super seniors, redshirt seniors, regular seniors, 4-year guys. It's a mixed group and an interesting group. So let's talk about it here on the Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, welcome to the Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. Glad to be hanging out with you today. Talk a little bit of Pitt sports. You know, we always ask you to do like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com to never miss any of our Pitt video content, whether it's these daily morning Pitt videos, our weekly live show like the one we did last night at 8:30 p.m. every Wednesday night with me and Jim Hammett, or our post-game shows. And we'll be live after the Clemson game on Saturday, probably around 6 or 7 o'clock, for a live post-game to talk about what we saw out of the Panthers on Saturday afternoon, the final home game of the regular season. Don't forget to check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all the Pitt sports news you can possibly handle. All right, let's jump into this. There's 17 seniors on this team. I thought we could talk about each of them. I'm going to give like 30-second blurb on each guy, maybe probably longer on some and probably longer on all of them. But I'm going to try to get through all 17 of these guys. A quick breakdown. There's 5 of them are 6th-year seniors. 5 of them are 4th-year seniors. So 5 are 6th-year seniors, guys who came in the recruiting class of 2019, which we'll talk about those guys in a second and kind of what's remarkable about them. There's 5 who are true seniors. So they're guys who came in the recruiting class of 2021. And the ones who signed with Pitt out of the recruiting class of 2021 were on the ACC championship roster as true freshmen. Although of those guys, 2 of the 5 were transfers. So they weren't actually on the roster then. So they missed out. And then the other 7 are redshirt seniors, guys who were in the 2020 recruiting class. I would think most of them would have the option to return as a 6th-year senior if they were so inclined next year. But we'll see. I'm not sure if all of them have that option, and we'll see what kind of plays out there. All right, 6th-year guys. Let's talk about the 6th-year guys first. All right, and the 6th-year guys are the guys who signed in the recruiting class of 2019, at least the ones who were not transfers, and a couple of them were transfers. But the guys who came to Pitt as, you know, and are now 6th-year seniors were in the recruiting class of 2019, which means they took their official visit in June of 2018. The first year you could take a June official visit. These guys were in that group. These guys committed when Pitt still wore the dark blue uniforms. They had the retro uniforms that year. In 16, 17, and 18, they had the retro uniforms, the throwbacks, which are still the best uniform Pitt has maybe ever worn, to be quite honest. Far better than what they wear now. Certainly far better than what they wore at the time. And I think even far better than some of the sort of classic Pitt uniforms of the 80s or 90s. I just think those things were absolutely, you picture what they wore in the ACC championship game in 2018 or what they wore when they went to Penn State in 2017, those road retro uniforms. Oh, those things were fantastic. They were the best look Pitt has had. They were a perfect uniform, and there was no reason whatsoever to adjust to what they have now. What they have now is fine. They got the colors right, but there's no need for the adjustments that they made. I shouldn't be getting on a soapbox about this, but these guys who committed, these guys in this 2019 recruiting class who are 6th-year seniors now, committed to Pitt when they wore the old uniforms. That's how long they've been around. So Daniel Carter is the first one we'll mention, and I think he actually probably committed over the summer of 2018, but he announced his commitment the night of the ACC championship game in December of 2018. He's been committed since Sean Watson was the offensive coordinator. He's been committed since they called the stadium Heinz Field. He's been committed since Pitt wore those old uniforms. He's been committed for a long time. A lot of guys have come and went since, in the time that Daniel Carter has been here, and he's just kept plugging away. He's never gotten the featured role that he probably feels, certainly that he would want, and maybe even feels like he deserves, but he's stuck with it. He never transferred, and he's still chugging along. and doing his job when he gets called upon. I think there are very few guys who you could say that every time their number is called, they pretty much produced exactly what was needed. Even if it was just a short yardage touchdown, Daniel Carter's been pretty good at that. Another guy who's a sixth-year guy is Jason Collier. Jason Collier was in that 2019 recruiting class as well. He was a tight end in high school, but it was pretty clear he was going to be an offensive lineman. Him and I think the other guy was Bryce Nelms in that recruiting class were recruited. They were playing different positions. We listed them in different positions on Rivals.com, but they were all going to be offensive linemen. And that's what Collier's been. Mixed reviews on his career, but he's been here for 6 years. Finally got into the starting lineup last year for a while, played in the starting lineup this year for a while, all at guard, but he's been around a long time. Another guy in that recruiting class was Brandon George, a guy whose time finally came this year, a guy who went into the transfer portal at the end of last season and for whatever reason decided to leave the transfer portal and come back to Pitt and spend his final year with the Panthers. I think he's been having the best year of his career in his final year of eligibility, and a guy who has also just sort of done whatever is asked of him and done whatever he could to try to help the team win and go forward. I think it's great to see him sticking it out this long, and in his sixth year, he finally gets into the starting lineup and makes plays and makes an impact. Had some big plays, had an interception where he's laying on the ground, returned a blocked punt for a touchdown. Some big plays, and has done a nice job as a senior. Those are the only three guys left from that 2019 recruiting class that Pitt signed. Daniel Carter, Jason Collier, Brandon George. But there's a handful of other guys who would fit into this category of super seniors, like Ryan Jacoby, who transferred in from Ohio State prior to the 2021 season. Jacoby joined in August of 2021, like right before training camp. So it was probably like maybe late July of 2021. Puts him way behind because he's, a young player, just a third-year player. And then, also a guy who just arrived. But by the end of that season, he had done enough to impress the Pitt coaches that he was getting on the field and seeing some playing time. 2022, he saw a decent amount of playing time, but it was almost all as an extra blocker, basically lining up as a tight end. And then last year was supposed to be his year, but he got hurt. This year was supposed to be his year, and he's played, but he's also been dealing with injuries again. And so Ryan Jacoby's 6 years of college football haven't produced as much as he would have liked, I think. But some of that's out of his control, like the injuries. Another guy who transferred in, Key Thompson, super productive linebacker at Ohio, came in for 1 year this year. And Key Thompson is an interesting guy, kind of fits like this mold of players, this group of players that I think you're going to see more and more over the years. And you already see a lot, these guys who transfer in for 1 year. Their final year of eligibility. And they might come in and do really well for you and have a productive career, or productive year, I should say. Kylan Johnson was really good in 2019. Tyler Wiltz was really good for that year he was here, 22, I think it was. Shane Simon was a 2-year guy. You get a lot of these guys that you don't necessarily develop a strong connection to because they're only here for 1 year. And that's the way with Keith Thompson. I think he's been a nice player, a good reserve middle linebacker. He seems like he's gotten on with his teammates well and all that, but he's only here for 1 year. And it makes it harder to get a strong feeling about a guy when they only play for the team for 1 year. Some of the tight ends, most of the transfer tight ends they brought in have played multiple years, for better or for worse. But Key Thompson is a guy who's, 6-year guy, doing a nice job as Brandon George's backup, and solid transfer portal ad. I believe Nate Matlack is out of eligibility as well. He was in the 2020 recruiting class, but it appears that he is not going to have any eligibility left, so he's going to walk. Transfer addition from Kansas State, I think I probably expected him to produce a little bit more in terms of sacks. He just hasn't been able to finish the plays very often. He's got 3 or 4 sacks or something like that on the season. And he's kind of been sitting on that number for most of the year since getting a few in September. Just not able to finish the play. He's just not getting home. He's been able to apply pressure. He's had a pretty good pressure rate, compared to the rest of the ACC, but just not able to finish the plays. But he's played a lot. He's been on the field a lot. True seniors. Guys who are in their 4th year, they were in the 2021 recruiting class. They're out of eligibility as of this year. They won't be able to come back. Gavin Bartholomew you talk about guys who unrealized potential, showed so much as a freshman in 2021, had that highlight reel play in 2022 against Tennessee when he jumped over a guy, just never really got utilized all that much in the Frank Cignetti offense, really got more work and was probably utilized better as the number 2 tight end under Mark Whipple than he was as the number 1 guy in Frank Cignetti's offense. And this year, last week was game number 9, and he scored his first touchdown. Not the level of production that I expected to see out of Gavin Bartholomew. I don't want to say a disappointing end to his career, but it is a little disappointing that he never really blossomed and got that big season that it seemed like he was capable of. And now he's playing his final home game. All of a sudden, El Barto is El Dunzo. Sort of seemed to happen really fast. Kind of surprised. It's already over with Gavin Bartholomew. You felt like he would be here a little bit longer, but he's out of his eligibility. P.J. O'Brien was in that 2021 recruiting class for Pitt, a guy who's been a reserve safety pretty much throughout his career, got a little bit of starting time last year, he's in a 3-man rotation this year. He's playing a lot this season. A little inconsistent, at times unreliable earlier in his career, had a bad stretch where he kept taking penalties on special teams, and it made it seem like he was very undisciplined. I'm not sure that was entirely unwarranted, but he's been a solid player. I think he had 3 interceptions last year, so he's got a knack for making plays. He's a good athlete. Just needs to improve that consistency. Now his 4 years are up. Rodney Hammond was in that class as well, that 2021 recruiting class. I can still remember being in Atlanta when Pitt was playing at Georgia Tech in 2019 and being on the phone with Rodney Hammond Saturday morning of the game because he had just committed. Before I headed over to the College Football Hall of Fame, I did an interview with Rodney Hammond about committing to Pitt. So that's the backstory on him. Again, a guy who 2021, was playing as a freshman, showed flashes. He showed flashes like every year of his career. But 2021, he's playing in a pass-heavy offense. 2022, he's playing behind Izzy Abanikanda. 2023, who knows what the hell was going on with the reps and the snaps and the playing time decisions last year. And this year he ends up behind Desmond Reed, in addition to being ineligible for the first 4 games, comes back, plays in the next 4 games, didn't play last Saturday, and it seems like a red shirt is on the table for a possible return in 2025. So the book seemingly not closed on Rodney Hammond just yet. They've got a couple other seniors, true seniors, who fourth-year guys who played all 4 years, who transferred in. Kanate Mumfield had a great year as a freshman at Akron, transferred in ahead of the 2022 season. Probably expected to be used a lot more than he was over the last 2 years, but so it goes with Pitt's offense over the last 2 years. Not a lot of guys were getting used all that much in Frank Cignetti's offense, and Kanate Mumfield was certainly one of those who was underutilized. Earlier this season, it seemed like he was going to get a proper amount of utilization, that his talents were going to be finally capitalized on, and maximized. But it seems to have, as so much has gone with this offense so far this year, it seems to have fallen off. You hope that he has an opportunity to close the season strong. Donovan McMillan also transferred in. Peters Township guy, went to Florida in the recruiting class of 2021, stayed there for 2 years, and then transferred to Pitt for the last 2 seasons. He's been really good. Leading tackler last year, leading tackler currently this season. Just a really good physical, good, strong tackling safety. Ideal for that boundary safety spot in Pitt's defense. And as Pitt's defensive scheme sort of gets more and more prevalent in the NFL, maybe there's going to open up an opportunity for him to get a chance at the next level. He's a good athlete, again, strong, good tackler. I think he'll have an opportunity there. But his time is up, and it's kind of crazy how fast that went. You do sort of wonder, guys like him or Derek Davis or MJ Devonshire, should you have just come to Pitt in the first place? Really? But, that's a conversation for another time. All right, and then the rest of the guys, 7 redshirt seniors. Raphael Williams came in as a transfer. He's a redshirt senior, the wide receiver. Jake Overman, also a redshirt senior, came in as a transfer this year. And Tamon Lynham, a redshirt senior, is a transfer cornerback from Nebraska. All 3 of those guys came in as transfers this offseason. Like Nate Matlack, I'm not entirely sure what their eligibility situation looks like. Some guys are eligible, some guys aren't. As far as coming back in 2025, some guys may choose to come back, some guys may not. I think if you can get Jake Overman back for next year, I think they should absolutely try to do it, because I think he's proven to be far more useful in the passing game than I anticipated him being, and maybe more useful than the Pitt coaches anticipated him being. I think he's been really good, played really well, and maybe is, again, he's on a list of guys who are probably a little underutilized at this point. Raphael Williams, I don't know what his eligibility situation looks like as far as if he has the option to come back. He obviously is a favored target in this offensive scheme, but he's also coming off a rough game. So I understand if just based on the Virginia game alone, people were like, nah, they don't need Raphael Williams back. I understand that. Branson Taylor's a redshirt senior, signed with Pitt in the 2020 recruiting class, obviously got hurt. Has missed the past few games. See if there's a decision there for him to make. Again, if the eligibility allows it. Rashad Battle, a guy who's missed a lot of time due to injury, didn't play against Virginia due to injury. And so you wonder if maybe there's an opportunity for him to return. And then Ben Sauls is a redshirt senior. Ben Sauls has established himself as one of the best kickers in Pitt history. Maybe the best, maybe not. He's got a few records to his name, and it feels like there's probably a decent chance that in the final 3 games of the regular season and or the bowl, he's going to have an opportunity to add a couple more records. Like he wants to keep kicking deeper field goals. So if nothing else comes out of these final 4 games, 3 in the regular season, 1 in the bowl, hopefully Ben Sauls can get some more records, right? So that would be interesting. But I mean, Sauls has been really good. I think after maybe a rocky start to his career, he has settled into becoming really reliable, really consistent, really good. He just needs to recognize that if there are 3 guys trying to block 6 on the right side of the formation, you should probably take the initiative to call a timeout and get a new protection set, because that block field goal against Virginia, when you watch the replay, there's 3 guys on the right side of the field for Pitt blocking. There's 6 Virginia guys. It's a wonder that only one of them got through in time to block it. It seems like more of them probably should have been able to get through, and you've got 6 rushing against 3. What a mess. But that's the way it goes. Those are the kind of things that'll lose you games. Those are the kind of things that'll cost you a game, is a blocked field goal where you just don't see that they're about to overload on one side. I'm sure somebody has a better explanation for it than that, but that's what it looked like. And that's what ended up happening. But senior day, and then of course we'll also keep an eye. There's 17 redshirt juniors on this team. We'll keep an eye and see if any, or scholarship players, I should say. We'll keep an eye and see if there's any of those guys who decide to walk on senior day, senior night, senior morning, whatever you want to call it, on Saturday, because that'll indicate that they don't plan to return in 2025. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens on Saturday, and certainly we'll have the full list at Panther-Lair.com, so you can get everything you need to know about what's going on with those seniors on senior day, Saturday, prior to the game against Clemson. And, I know the final thing here. I know you're disappointed about the way the last 2 games have gone. Maybe you don't feel great about the way the last 4 games have gone just because of the state of the offense. You're disappointed that a 7-0 start has turned into 7-2 with some really tough games coming up, and maybe a possibility of 7-4, 7-5, 8-4. Your hope for 9-3 at a minimum maybe feels like it's fading away. And I understand if you're disappointed, you're not really happy with the direction things have gone. But there's 17 seniors here. Most of them are going to walk. Maybe a few redshirt juniors are going to join in. And they're all guys who have given a lot of years to the football program. And whatever you think about the current state of things, whatever you think about the direction the team is headed, and I'm sure you extended bigger to the program and the athletic department and the city and everything, these guys have spent a lot of time and effort and blood and sweat and tears and all those things. They put a lot of earth, wind, and fire into your favorite football team. So you could try to get in a little bit early and give them a round of applause. No matter what you think about the state of the team or how they're playing or anything like that, you could show a little appreciation to those guys. Like, thanks for playing for the team. You could. I don't know if anybody will, but you could. I'll be in there. Not necessarily clapping, just writing down names of the guys who are getting recognized. But I'll be in there. Hopefully you will as well before kickoff on Saturday for Pitt's game against Clemson. So anyway, like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to get all of the Pitt sports news you can possibly handle. And I think that might be it. Thanks for your time today. Hope you have a great Thursday, and we'll be back with the Panther-Lair, the Morning Pitt mailbag tomorrow right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.